Hello, BookTube, and welcome back to Samaran September. This is a BookTube event created by Michael K. Vaughan, where we read Conan, the great creation of Robert E. Howard. We read either, like last year, the original stories of Robert E. Howard, or this year, concentrating more on the pastiches, all the many kinds of pastiches that have happened. And I made a Cimmerian September video yesterday, but I've had one of those odd constellational alignments. I don't know how many of you have ever been freelance writers, but much less a freelance editor. But every once in a while, despite the best planning that can be done, suddenly you will look at your docket of work and it will be undoable. It will be the work of 10 people. And you don't know how it happened that way. It's like a mystery wave at sea. I was under the impression that I had my schedule pretty well mapped out. And that's even including a new job that has been added to that schedule. A new job that is not quite open-ended, but it is big, and it will have its ups and downs. I thought I had all of that mapped, and it turned out not to be true. And this has led to a rather crowding on the airport runways, and so I thought that I wouldn't get any BookTube event reading done last night. I thought that I would break up last night's free time, in other words, from when the whole world goes to sleep, 10 or 11, all the way to dawn. I thought I would break up that time pretty evenly between reading that is work-related and writing that is work. And that I wouldn't have time for any BookTube events at all. I'd just have to come up with other things to talk about today. And that maybe I wouldn't have time to make videos today if the crowding got really bad. But I am very old, but I am still the fastest gun east of the Pecos. And that runway clutter is largely gone. I'm still a bit of a freak. But I went easy on myself last night. In terms of elective reading, I went easy on myself and did not read any Robert E. Howard Conan stories. And I did not read any Robert E. Howard Conan pastiche novels. But I didn't want to leave the Hyborian era entirely. So I read a pastiche of a pastiche. I read a pastiche novel about Red Sonia. Who was a preliminary, bare-bones, prototypical version of this character, was created by Robert E. Howard in a story that was not set in the Hyborian Age. It had nothing to do with Conan. And that story is not all that good. And the Marvel Comics writer, Roy Thomas, saw that story and did what he did for the whole of his run, adapting Conan to 4-color comics and black and white comics, which is to take that story and freely readapt it, change all sorts of things about it. And the main thing that he changed was the heroine of that story. He changed that heroine into a character in Conan's time called Red Sonia, who had flaming red hair and who had maybe or maybe not made a supernatural pact with a Hykranian god, and maybe had made a magical deal that no man will defeat me in battle unless they also defeat my heart, unless I fall in love. A very tried and true warrior maiden type thing that Roy Thomas may have been familiar with from Arthurian legend or Orlando Furioso by Ludovico Ariosto, where the idea was that you would have an armed, armor-wearing woman who would somehow be able to compete physically with all the men around her and beat them. And the idea was never that she would do that just on straightforward physical prowess. Unless she was a monster, unless she was Grendel's mother or something like that, it would never be on straightforward physical prowess. Because in all of those older centuries when Arthurian literature was being written, or the Italian folklore on which later poems was drawn, in fact every other century other than this one, it was an acknowledged fact that reality exists, and that women are half as strong as men, that a grown male human is going to be in upper body strength, in raw physical endurance over short periods of time, is going to be much, much stronger than an adult female human. This is true in many, many animal species. There's absolutely no insult involved in it. There's absolutely no patriarchal oppression with it, although you will get an oppressive patriarchy the minute men realize that. That is the root of all patriarchal oppression, is that the two sexes are not physically the same. But that's a video for another subject, another time that will never come. I've already addressed this issue in a few videos. The idea was, in all of those old stories, that we want a Marfisa. We want a character, a woman who can hold her own with men on the battlefield, and we have to come up with a reason for that. There has to be a way around that. It can't just be physical strength. It's got to be enchanted armor or enchanted sword or a mystical bargain. Something or other that makes them unbeatable. Something that can filter into the folklore surrounding a figure like Joan of Arc. Roy Thomas stewed all of that together, didn't really stress any of it really hard. The idea was to have a big, red-headed, beautiful warrior woman who was a counterpart to Conan. And boy, oh boy, he introduced her. He introduced a character called Red Sonia in the Conan comic book, and oh my God, did fans love Red Sonia. Absolutely loved her. Could not get enough. She took off. As a guest star in Conan's books, she took off. There was an unwritten rule in Marvel Comics at the time, an unwritten rule that was started by Stan Lee, and it showed his showman's instincts perfectly well, which is that if you get a character like that, use them sparingly. If fans write in and say, we love the Silver Surfer, okay, then make it an event for the Silver Surfer to show up in a comic book. Don't just have him there all the time. Maybe you'll give him his own book, but until you do, use that sparingly. Keep fans on edge for this character. Familiarity breeds boredom. But fans still clamored for more Red Sonia, and Red Sonia changed. Red Sonia had a very marked change, one significant change in that comic book, which is the only place this character appeared. This Red Sonia, this Hykranian she-devil, does not appear in Robert E. Howard. But in the comic books, when she originally appeared and was drawn by Barry Windsor Smith, back when he was just humble, long-haired, absolutely gorgeous Barry Smith, he drew her in clothes. And when she was visually reinterpreted by John Buscema, the first thing he thought was, well, that's not going to do at all, is it? If Conan's not wearing clothes, well, then this beautiful woman's not going to wear clothes either. I will give her a famously chainmail bikini. I will put her in chainmail bikini. And it worked. To say the least, it increased her already great popularity to the point where she did get her own comic book that is, I imagine, collected in one of those huge omnibus editions that Marvel puts out. I'm sure that Michael K. Vaughan has a giant omnibus of Red Sonia. And she also appeared in movies, including, I think, a couple of movies of her own. So Roy Thomas hit a home run. He created a lot of characters in his time in comic books, a lot of them. I don't think he's dead, but I don't think he's working anymore. But he created a lot of great characters. I don't think any of them was ever as successful as Red Sonia. During all of this fame, she inspired a short run of books, of novels. And I read the first of those, The Ring of Ikribu, which is by David Smith and Richard Turney. Richard Turney's name rings a strong bell with me, but I didn't go chasing. I didn't want to do any kind of soup to nuts research on this. I used it purely as dessert for a night of work, and thought, well, okay, it's a pastiche of a pastiche in an event about pastiches where Conan does not appear. So it's only lightly adjacent to Samaran September, but it should be a lot of good, empty-headed fun, at least for the first 50 pages, until the book completely disappoints you by falling apart, as so many actual Conan pastiches have done in September. And that didn't happen. Oh my God, to put it mildly, that didn't happen. This was terrific. Absolutely terrific. We have a Boris Vallejo cover here. There's Red Sonia in her chainmail bikini. Roy Thomas did not copyright the look. thank God. And of course, nothing could be more offensive to the blue-haired woke skulls who now run the comic book industry. Nothing could be more offensive than the famous chainmail bikini. So although she gets this look on the beautiful painted covers of her ongoing comic books, Red Sonia always has 2 or 3 ongoing comic books. The 2 or 3 stories that I've actually plunked down and bought and read, she's wearing a shapeless potato sack. I don't know if that's always true. Maybe I got a bad story, but the one story that I read recently in I forget who does the Red Sonia comic franchise. It's not Marvel. God, thank God, but it doesn't matter because they're all ideologically compromised. But in that story, not only is Red Sonia wearing a potato sack the whole time, but she's also a sad sack who comes up with no ideas, does nothing, basically complains the whole time. And I don't know why, because this thing came out in the 80s, I believe. 1981. So I shouldn't. Back in 1981, there were 2 sexes, so I shouldn't have worried that I was going to encounter this, and I didn't. Oh my, it was wonderful. There's a wizard, Azeroth, who has lost his ring. His ring is very powerful, makes him very powerful. What is it with wizards who can't hold on to their keepsakes? I have no idea. No idea at all. I mean, my grandmother came over in rat-infested steerage from Ireland and held on to all of her rings until she was like 170. So I don't see why these wizards have so much trouble. Why not just put some sort of a low jack on it or something like that? But we have a wizard who's lost a ring and is looking for it. And we have a deposed king, Olin, who has a mercenary army looking to get him back in power. He wants to get back in power. And Sonja is part of that mercenary army. And she has a lot of experience. She is really good at what she does. Everyone in the story, especially in Olin's army, agrees with that. They all see that. When she has reservations about some new encampment or some site on the horizon, they listen to her. They pay attention to her. And she's terrific as a character. Roy Thomas had a great idea with her. He fleshed it out over many issues, that she was a lot like Conan, but maybe a little more wry, maybe a little more spiteful of the world, not in a curdled sense, but she has a very similar but a different personality to Conan. It's no surprise at all, the way Roy Thomas writes her, that they would be friends, good friends, that they would trust each other implicitly. There's no surprise at all involved in that, to me anyway. She's very much that Sonja in here. I have no idea what the origin of this novel is. I have no idea. Roy Thomas writes the introduction to it. I don't know if he talked with the authors. I don't know if they read any Red Sonia appearances in Marvel. This is clearly a Roy Thomas character. I mean, this is the Marvel interpretation of Red Sonia. I don't know if they consulted those comics or not. Red Sonia doesn't have anything like the imaginative biography reconstruction that Conan does. I don't think anybody, I don't know of it. I don't know of anyone who's pieced together a biography that tells you exactly where she was. Was she in the Shemite kingdoms at such and such a time? Did she move on to do this at such another time? I don't know that anybody's done that, so it's a pretty clean canvas here. And that's 2/3 of the book, is Olin trying to reclaim his throne, and he's a terrific character. He's, I dare say, more interesting than anyone in the book, including Red Sonia. He's terrific in his towering rages, in his frustration, in the weird, extremely effectively written ways that he tries to control his temper. He knows that that's important, and it isn't always possible for him. I just loved it. Thought it was fantastic. It comes all the way to a big climax that has a supernatural element that is extremely well done. And one of the curses of the Wizard's Ring caught me out of left field. One of, I won't say not explicitly a curse, but one of the abilities of the Wizard's Ring, revealed at the end of the story, belongs in a different novel. Or maybe it's right where it belongs. This was really good. I was expecting this to be junk. And it wasn't junk at all. There's a big climax at the end that is both, in all the classic stories of Conan, physical and sorcerous. And there's a couple of great character moments at the end. Actually, Red Sonia gets a couple of great character moments all throughout the book. So I don't know that this counts for Samaran September. It's not. It's a pastiche of someone's pastiche of a different character. It's not Conan at all. Doesn't even have, I don't think, the Hyborian Age map. I don't think so. Let's see. No, there's no map in this thing. And you can't be a Conan story without a map. So I'm going to move back to Conan. I don't know when I will do that. Will it be tonight? I don't really know. This wave is going to crest. And when it does, I will be free. So, but maybe tonight. I will definitely have lots of other Conan videos before Cimmerian September is over. This is not quite that, but Roy Thomas wrote an introduction to this thing. And Red Sonia has been livening up Conan comics for 50 years. So I thought it came close enough for an off-work night. But anyway, I'm going to wrap this up. But I'll be back. Thank you, BookTube.